Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a few minutes, please. Can we get the formalities out of the way? I'm Fingleton from Gill Macmillan. I'm the publisher of Fingers, and more than usually proud to be. I want to start, as I should, by thanking Tom and Richard. Publishers always thank their authors in these circumstances, but I have more reason than most to thank Tom and Richard on this occasion, because I know better than any of you the circumstances under which this remarkable book was written. Excuse me, that's fine. And I know the stresses that both authors were under. Many of these stresses induced by me, incidentally, since it is my job to put authors in stressful situations so that they meet deadlines. Because we were very, very anxious to publish the book around this time in the early spring season. So thank you to both of you. I think also I should thank my colleagues in Gill Macmillan, D. Renison Kuntz in the editorial department, and Mairead O'Keefe in production, neither of whom are here this evening. At least they may be here. I haven't seen them in this throng. But they are silent heroes or heroines in that they pull rabbits out of hats, they accelerate schedules, and they regularly produce the impossible. We were, of course, anxious to publish this book excuse me, as close as possible to the television programme. And you've seen the television programme, I presume, and you've read the extracts in the newspapers, but this is a book of over 100,000 words dealing forensically and in brilliant narrative with a matter of the most compelling public interest. I will, obviously, as publisher of the book, I hope that in addition to being in the public interest, that it is also of interest to the public. This elusive distinction, which I suppose, like pornography, everyone can recognise and no one can define. But it is, I think, a remarkable story anchored in the personality of this strange, talented and flawed man, Michael Fingleton, who is central to everything that constitutes the narrative of Fingers. It's a moral tale for our times, and I think is one of the most remarkable documents, looking back at those years of crazy delusion that we all lived through and for which we are now all paying. It does occur to me that in the case of Mr. Fingleton, and he's not alone in this, that my grandchildren as adults will be paying for his misdemeanours and stupidities. That is not a pleasing thought, and it shouldn't be a pleasing thought for any of us. At any rate, it seems to me that Fingers is as good a record of these tragic and farcical events as it is possible to have, and I renew my congratulations to Tom and to Richard, both of whom will now speak to you to conclude the formalities. I now redeem my wine, which the photographer was about to plunder. Thank you.
I'm just going to keep these comments short, but I'd like to deliver a few of the thank yous, in particular to Gill Macmillan and my partner in this endeavour, Richard Curran, in helping me to produce this book. And I'd also like to thank our family, partners and friends, and everybody who's here this evening to support the publication. I'd also like to thank some of the people we met along the way whilst researching the book. I'd like to thank Graham Usher, who's a guy who used to live in Priory Hall. I see from his Twitter account he says it's now 501 days since he and 3 other families were turfed out of their homes in North Dublin. Among the stories Fingers tells is how Irish Nationwide funded this development, didn't really care about how it went, and left people in a terrible mess. And that's one of the things that's important to remember, that there's a human cost to all of this lending and all of this reckless lending. The second person I'd like to thank for coming is right up the front, Con Power. Was a non-executive director of Irish Nationwide from 2001 until 2006. The book tells how he did his best to contain Michael Fingleton and ensure that the society treated its smaller borrowers well. And I think it took considerable courage for him to agree to be interviewed for the book. And it's very notable that he was the only director of Irish Nationwide in its long history who was prepared to cooperate whatsoever with this publication. Down the back there I can see Olivia Green and Ben Began, who are two former Irish Nationwide employees who turned whistleblowers and were prepared to explain what exactly was going on inside Irish Nationwide and what it was like to work with Michael Fingleton. And I'd like to thank them too for coming down to this launch, because it's people like them who are the lifeblood of journalism. I'd also like to thank Bill Tyson. This is somebody who Richard and myself really both know very well, and we both have worked with, and he was the personal finance editor of the Irish Independent, and he's somebody who really championed the distressed borrowers at a time when it was difficult to do so. And he worked very closely with somebody else who's here this evening, a guy called Brendan Burgess. And I'd just like to say about Bill, and I think we both like to say this, is that Bill took on Michael Fingleton Irish Nationwide, and he took it on in a way that was sustained,